project evaluation. I'm curious to know if you could give us a sense of, and you could pick one project if you want to. You don't have to be specific at all if you don't like to, if you don't want to. But give us a sense of what goes into the decision-making process when it comes to tendering, from your perspective.
Okay, with tendering, we basically have to write a scope. So basically how the project going to run from start to finish. The size of blocks, foundation, running a fence, for example, up to cleaning up of the yard. All of that we state in the scope.
More known than others. So yes, let me segue here this way. Tell us about some of those projects.
Okay, one of the well-known ones, of course, is the Bastille Desalination Plant. But we actually have private project managers who work alongside us in terms of that project. We basically completed the UAE desalination plant. We're just finishing up some earthworks, fencing of olives, which I spoke about last time. It's progressing smoothly. We're building out an office building in our yard currently. That is also progressing. And a few others. The roof that has resumed.
The roof of which building?
Water department building.
Correct. Yes.
So we have a few ongoing projects right now.
All right, and all of that is geared, of course, to making sure that the customers have a better experience, and also that you as workers also have a better experience.
I just know what to say.
A much-needed, improved experience, if you ask me. All right, so let's continue talking about water infrastructure and planning. Specifically, I would like to know how the department anticipates future water demands and integrates that into planning. Can you do that?
Okay, with future water demands, well, we know that right now the housing sector is growing and also the tourism sector. So we take that into consideration, as you see, with the 2 million gallon per day desalination plant, so that we could cut back on the completely stop the rationing. So it's basically looking at the challenges we're facing right now and brainstorming ideas and then making a decision on what's the next step.
Okay, so given your experience in that, I would then say, from my own deduction, that the desalination plant came from one of those brainstorming sessions. And even the way that you are currently networking parts of the island to other parts, that's also from a brainstorming session. I noticed that you have been, let's say, running the pipeline from the desalination plant to Morne Peak. Can you give us a little more insight into how that's going?
That is running smoothly. They're basically in the yard now of the reservoir. So they just have to basically do the connection and everything. And then they will continue from the Bird Rock basketball court to cross the road to enter into the desal plant site. So actually tonight between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m., they would be cutting the road to install the pipeline.
So you're working in the reverse direction somewhat. So up to the hill.
Up to
and
the
then
hill
across
and
the
then
road.
Across the road into the site.
Okay, so 9 p.m. to 1 a.m.
1
That's
a.m.
Bird Rock Road. That's problems are resolved. So I'm grateful that you shed some light on that as well. Are there, as we move to challenges now, any other challenges that perhaps would make your work or the work of your colleagues a little more difficult when it comes to providing water for the people of St. Kitts?
Right now, no. I can say no. I don't think so. I think the department right now is doing everything it can to, get additional water.
Wonderful. I know when I spoke with Mr. Williams and Dr. Hogue some time ago, we spoke about the aerial survey. We spoke about the drilling. We know we had the press conference recently enough when it was mentioned that they would be drilling some possibly 10 sites soon. So obviously people should rest assured that you are doing everything you can to ensure that we get over this water issue.
Challenge.
Water challenge, whatever you want to call it. Hey, we can attribute it to climate change because that's really what is going on.
Yeah.
That is really what's going on. And interestingly enough, one of the things that surprised me, and I shouldn't be surprised by it, and this is a little bit of a geography lesson for me, and I guess we could bring it back to our context here. Randomly, I was looking at a movie, and it was set in Europe, and one of the characters said, looking at the snow-capped mountains, oh, that's going to disappear in 10 years. And I thought, Well, that's interesting because when we think of climate change and we're trying to tell people here on the island we don't have enough rainwater, we don't have enough water because of climate change, some of us think, well, it's not a real thing. And yet, when you see people in developed countries speaking to the way that it's affecting them, it's a global thing.
Yeah.
And so we're dealing with our end of it the best way that we know how. And that involves a lot of the work that you do.
The theme for World Water this year was actually about glacier preservation, that we actually get our fresh water from, the world gets its fresh water from glaciers.
So imagine that we're in that
that was the
situation
theme,
now
glacier preservation.
where we could stand to lose more rapidly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Fresh
Then
water.
we definitely have to do something about that. And I think we are, to be honest with you, because with the inclusion of desalination into the Water Services Department's arsenal, I think it's one of those ways that we can definitely allay the fears of the public as to whether or not there would be enough water. One of your colleagues, actually, another assistant water engineer, said to me yesterday, she said, I'm jealous of you because of where you're living, because when the desalination plant comes on stream, you are going to have some of the freshest water ever. You won't need your bottled water that I see you walking around with. And she was like, I'm really jealous of you. And that's, to me, one of those messages that I think needs to get out there, that people obviously should rest assured that the quality of the water is good, that the project itself is coming along smoothly, that the water woes, as I like to call them privately, no, you know I do it publicly, the water woes, as I like to say, will soon be behind us. Moving on to, well, before I do that, if anybody wants to engage Ms. Hanley, you can call us here in the studio at 465-1977. Now, moving on to sustainability and innovation. I know that you mentioned some of the projects that you've been working on. I would like to know specifically if there are any upcoming or even any of those projects aimed at improving water sustainability or even expanding the network. I know that there is an interconnectivity project, I think, that is in the work. Are you at liberty to tell us about that?
Well, right now in the works we have smart meters and also SCADA. So smart meters will help us to better measure consumption, also detect leaks better so that people don't have these, high bills because there's a leak and they're just unaware of the leak. Also, it will allow them to pay their bills, more easily. And the SCADA, for one, would help us to better be aware of the tank levels, the flow rates, any leaks at our reservoirs, stuff like that. Instead of having our workers to go out, sometimes they leave work, which they spoke about recently, 3 a.m. in the morning when everybody's still sleeping, going up in the hills, turning on the valves, cleaning out the intakes and everything. So that, not that we wouldn't have that at all, but it would be cut back when we implement the SCADA system.
Well, that's definitely good because when we think of including technology in the work that we do, technology is really supposed to make our lives easier. So if it's doing that for the department, that's good on one hand, and you spoke to some of the benefits that the public can expect to enjoy from that as well. When you mentioned SCADA, a radar went off in my head. Well, pardon the pardon the pun. It went off in my head because I remember the last time I was here, I was speaking with your colleagues in the person of the Inspector of Quality and the Inspector of Works. And one of the things that he mentioned about the SCADA system is that it would also help monitor the quality of the water. And so he would not necessarily have to, let's say, divert so much attention to detecting whether there are changes in the water quality per se. He would get that through the app on his phone that he can use, and that's really something that we're looking forward to because it makes your work easier. It also makes it very exciting. It's like you're on the cutting edge of technology, and that's good as well. I mean, you're doing this, you're doing aerial surveys with the drones that we saw. We have a desalination plant, which probably will be the envy of certain other territories in the region, if not outside of it. So that is really very good. A lot of work is going into a lot of energy, a lot of capital, a lot of, let's say, human resource as well, going into what you do, and we appreciate that. All right, so as we continue our discussion on sustainability and innovation, incorporating renewable energy, all right, you said smart meters. So if we can break that down a little bit, I know that you said that you'd be able to detect leaks better. When we think of smart technology, data-driven tools, obviously, integrating into planning and so on, does this make your work that much easier? And if so, how so, other than what you said before?
In terms of making our work easier,
Yeah.
yes. But I think it's more so beneficial to the customers because, like I said, paying the bill on time, finding out about leaks, even if they might be a little behind on payments. The smart meters that we looked into, actually, they don't have to completely shut the water. They can actually slow down the flow of the water. So you still can get water. It might not be as much, but you still would be able to get some
Okay.
amount of water.
I think that bears repeating because
Yes, so even if, sometimes different things come up and people might not be able to pay all the bills at one time. We have situations like that. So the smart meters that we look into, they have two options, basically. They can shut off or they can slow down the rate of the flow rate of the water. So, it will work out to the benefit of the customers. We're not saying delay on your payments, but, it will assist them.
Definitely so. And I think that it speaks to the quality or the character of the people that are in leadership positions at the Water Services Department and even the ministry, that is the option that you are giving to the customer. Because traditionally, we were in situations where if people, and you know this very well because you work at the department, if people could not pay their bills after a particular period of time, then that water would be shut. What you're saying to me is the WSD, Water Services Department, that is willing to work with the customers, willing to send them cues that they need to pay their bills without depriving them of the essential service. And that, honestly, is commendable. I appreciate that, and I'm certain that our viewers and listeners will as well. I want to move on swiftly to community involvement and engagement. I'm not certain if, when you were here last, if we were able to get this far. So I'll ask you this now. How does the department engage with the public to promote water conservation, as far as you are aware?
Well, currently on the radio, as you know, and also during World Water, we have a week of activities. Sometimes we have exhibitions where students or even people, the public in general, can come up and either visit the water department and the show we have going on and the conversations about water and the water challenges. At one point, we had one at the Lagui treatment plant where a lot of the water for Bastille comes in and is distributed. So we did that as well. We don't currently go to schools on a regular basis. I think when schools reach out in terms of programs or internships and so, then we participate. But in terms of on a regular basis, every week or every month, no, we don't do that currently.
Well, that was my next question, but that's fine because I like the fact that the department and the ministry as well opens themselves to internships because you're looking for the next generation of engineers. You're looking for the next professional, the next generation basically to take over. One of the things that, and because you said it, I'll mention it now. One of the things that I remember, I don't think it was Dr. Hogue, I think it was the consultant that we had here recently for the SKN Transwater project, and forgive me, but his name eludes me at this very moment. But one of the things that he said in an interview that he had with the Water Services Manager, Mr. Williams, was that we have, as far as he is aware, the human resource here to be able to develop our water system, to be able to control what we need to control to ensure that it becomes more sustainable than perhaps it already is. And so when you say to me that you are opening your doors to younger people in school, internships, that sort of thing, then that's good as well, because to me, you're turning a light on, as it were, for them to see that these are the potential career paths that they can have, and these are the important things that they ought to know to help us manage our water resources. So I thank you for that as well. And in our final moments, time goes really quickly. In our final moments, I'd like to focus a little bit on the future and ask you specifically about what you consider to be your, not the department's necessarily, but your long-term vision for the future of water services in St. Kitts.
Okay, I would like to see water services continue to do its best to provide water to the consumers, 24-hour water, and also make it a sustainable resource, and also encourage consumers, because it's not just a water department. We all have to work together in terms of making water sustainable So, the consumers also conserve water as best as you can. You know, we grew up in a culture where we had water in abundance, but we don't have that now. So I guess the culture is already there where you want the water in your bed and you want the water in your brush your teeth and so. You know, we all have to work together to conserve water to ensure that it's kept sustainable.
Very well said. And the tips that are on your website, water.gov.kn, there are actually some conservation tips there. And there are articles, access to articles anyway, that you can see what's going on with the Water Services Department. People can get in touch with you on Facebook as well, at Water Services Department, St. Kitts, if I remember that correctly. And also, as I am taking my time to say, mopieUDT.gov.kn. That is the website that you ought to go to get more information from the ministry. So with this week's Waterline, I am Jamie Morris, thanking my guest, Assistant Water Engineer in the Water Services Department, for joining us. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Water is life, 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 life. Water is life, 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 life. Do just one thing,
Every drop count. Make sure you check for leaks around your house every day. Every drop count. When brushing your teeth, don't